Okay, we started Monday. Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the second quarter of 2026 Management Conference. I'd like to call us to order and remind everybody, if you have not signed in, to please sign in before you leave today so we have an accurate record of who attends. The agenda has been sent out and reviewed, and I'm seeking a motion for someone to approve it. Thank you, Dwayne Bushrock, second. Mark Black, second. Thank you. All in favor? All right, thanks. And then we also received the minutes from our quarter one annual conference back in February. Do we have a motion to accept those? Mark Black, second. Jordan Bushrock, second. All in favor? All right, thank you all. So we've got those two approved. And right now I just want to remind everybody that we've got Crawfish today. After the fact, I think it'll be ready around noon. I talked to them about back, they wouldn't give me a sample, and I tried. And they were cooking. So please, I'm not sticking around with us for Crawfish today. We'll be outside under the tent. And it should be a very nice day for them. I've got great weather, all of that. Do we have any old business or announcements? Okay, thank you. For our new business, we've had an application from the Coastal Technical Assistance Center to become part of an inter-conference. For them to do that, they have to submit an application and they have to attend 3 of the last 4 meetings, and they have been in attendance for those as required. So this is for CTAC to become a member of the inter-conference. Is there a motion to recommend? Dwayne Bourgeois made the motion, second. Mark Black, second. All in favor? All right, welcome to the family. All right, turn us over to our director, Mr. Randolph.
Thank you, Dr. Fondo. Welcome everybody to the Coastal Center again. It's good to be here with you this morning. And as Dr. Fondo mentioned, certainly looking forward to having some crawfish with everybody here in a little while. So let me jump right into it. It's been a busy spring, as it always is. In South Louisiana, it's festival season. The weather's good. People are out and about from the winter, and that's certainly BTNEP is no exception. So, a few things that have gone on since we met back here in February are Michelle and I spent some time in Washington D.C. and in March. We were there for our annual meeting with the National Estuary Program Administrator, EPA, to discuss NEP business, what's going on with NEP, and hot topic, and I'll mention it probably a couple times as I'm talking with you today, is the reauthorization of the program itself. So we were able to meet both with folks from EPA that administer the program, with our fellow NEP staff people from around the country, the other 27 National Estuary Programs, and then we also had a gathering of the Association of National Estuary Programs while we were there. Fortunately, in DC, take advantage of being there, of course, and we were able to visit each of our congressional offices to talk about the good work that you all do, that we do here as a program, and again to talk about the reauthorization of the National Estuary Program. There's an act that's been introduced to Congress, it's the Estuaries Act, that would reauthorize the program for the next 5 years. Bear with us as we're trying to accept. No. It seems, oh no, just a little more. One of the nice things about a new building is it's new. One of the tough things is that we're working some bugs out. So bear with us, folks. I'm gonna shout for a minute until we hopefully get this figured out. Can you all hear me in the back if I speak at this level? Thank you. So what I was talking about was the reauthorization of the program, which obviously is hugely important to us as a staff, as a management conference, and for this region. The Estuaries Act is co-sponsored actually by Senator Cassidy, and has been introduced into both the Senate and the House. And so that is likely to be up for a vote at some point later this year. We'll certainly ask any of you that support what we do, and by the fact that you're here, I would hope that you do support what we do. If you have an opportunity to talk with your Congress people, please mention that you support them supporting the Estuaries Act, which will keep us continuing to do the good work that we do, at least for the next 5 years. We had an opportunity to visit with some of our colleagues from the Mobile National Estuary Program. They were here beginning of April. We were able to talk with them. It was sort of an informal, I should say, tech transfer. We were able to talk with them about how they manage their program, how we manage our program, what some of the commonalities are there, some of the issues that they face and we face, and so forth. Also able, obviously, to show them around the estuary. You see us there with Dr. Fontenot at the floodplain, artificial floodplain, the created floodplain that he's going to talk about a little bit later today. It was a great visit and a good opportunity to share some knowledge between the two programs. You'll note on the agenda today, we also have one of the folks that was here back in April. He was back with his trusty K9 to give us a demonstration about a pretty cool project that they're working on over in Mobile. We have some staff you see on the slide here that were at GulfCon and just last week. This is the largest Northern Gulf of Mexico conference. They had an opportunity, of course, to meet with the community of practice that's working in restoration and resilience along the Gulf Coast, in addition to other NEPs across the Gulf Coast as well. So that was a good thing to be able to participate in just a couple of weeks ago. I'll also note this is a pretty cool thing that we're very proud of. We're participating in a state library program that's called Check Out Louisiana. So if you need to Google it, you can get some more information there. But what Check Out Louisiana is basically is the state library and the Office of State Parks have partnered. If you have a library card, you can get a pass to visit a state park or a state historic site for free, just by using your library card. Part of that is a Go Explore. We're going to try the mic again. That's little. Yeah. I'll give it a go for a minute. We'll see how it lasts. It seems to be a little better. Anyway, this is a program in partnership between State Library and the Office of State Parks. It's called the Get Out Louisiana program. Part of that is a Go Explore backpack that can be checked out associated with this program. So not only with your library card can you get a free pass to a state for one vehicle, as many people, I think, as you can fit in that vehicle, to visit a state park or a state historic site, but you can also check out a backpack that includes binoculars, compass, magnifying glass, and some wildlife guides, one of which is a publication that we have developed here and we're able to put out last year or even before last, I think, actually, which was the amphibian guide to amphibians in Louisiana. So they were impressed enough with that publication to include it in their backpack, and it's a great way for us to reach many more people with our products and with that publication. So excited to be a part of that. So we continue to push and to improve and to bolster our education program. You see some of the initiatives that have been worked on and been developed here over the last several months. Of course, Claude and Claudette, we talked about that. We've been in many schools.
We are.
Talking about
Thank you.
and obviously using that as a tool to talk about our estuary, the adventures that we had in that estuary. You see Sela here on the second picture from the left. That was at the Terrebonne Aquatic Clinic just a month or so ago. We developed a Louisiana saltwater situation lesson as well. This is an opportunity for students to learn about fresh practice in saltwater and actually use some tools. You see the young man there using a refractometer to measure salinity in different waters. And then we've got another lesson called trash talking, which is a field trip. You see some folks here. These folks were, I believe, from the 4-H group in St. Charles Parish. that vote last year on buying the food shopping to clean that area up. And obviously learn a little bit more about marine debris and the problems associated with litter in this region. Lots of engagement and outreach has occurred as well. We were at the Longtime Open House, so about 400 or so folks came through that open house where we were learning a little bit more, not just about Longtime, but about BTNEP. We were at Coastal Day at the Capitol earlier in the year as well. Obviously, we're able to connect with lots of our lawmakers, our legislators, and officials from the state that are involved in restoration and water quality and other efforts such as that. We were at Cook-Off for the Coast in St. Bernard Parish a little before that, and then something that I don't think we mentioned at the management board, management conference yet, but the Chaplain Trace Commission provided a grant to us to update our paddle guides. So one of the products I mentioned, publications that we produced earlier, I mentioned the amphibian guide, but we've had a paddle guide that's been outdated, and we were able to apply for and secure a grant to update that paddle guide. Are we off, Cody?
I'm just trying to bring the volume down.
Is volume down? You're not there.
Should be good now.
Okay. Can folks hear me in the back?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So as it relates to marine debris, one of our signature events throughout the year and biggest events was Bayou Cleanup. That was held on April 18th. It was quite an event. We had, again, about 400 or so volunteers participate in that over 2 weekends. Very happy to say that we were able to expand that from Bayou Touche into Terrebonne Parish, some of the bayous there. So we had covered more areas geographically, and were able to get some more people involved as a result of that. I want to very much thank the Bayou Touche Freshwater District who helped us pull this off. Keep Terrebonne Beautiful, which helped us move into Terrebonne Parish to clean up some of the bayous in that parish, and then all of our sponsors that helped make that event possible as well. The storm drain project, we wrapped that up. We were able to complete 13 of those in 5 parishes. We've got storm drains here in the Fouche Parish, in West Baton Rouge, and St. Mary, Assumption, and Iberville parishes. So hopefully you can get out and see some of those in some of those parishes. There are 2 at the Children's Museum not far from here if you're interested in seeing what those look like in person. Swing by there after you eat some crawfish today, and you'll be able to check it out. And then, of course, we have a green team that works very diligently weekly during the summer on Elmer's Island to help clean up marine debris there. And we need members. If anybody's interested in participating, being part of the green team and helping to clean up our coastal shorelines, particularly on Elmer's Island, please contact Emily Bro. You see the contact information listed there. The plant nursery has been busy. We gave away over 1,000 trees back on April 7th. You see a picture of that there on the left. We continue to have folks visit us for Farm Fridays and other volunteer events. South Louisiana Bank, Shell, who's been a great supporter of the program. Luke, likewise, Schlumberger as well, have been there recently. I'll mention it in upcoming events, but I'll go ahead and mention it here since we're talking about the plant nursery. We'll have a pollinator plant giveaway coming up later this month on May 30th. So mark the calendars and get ready to get out there to get some pollinator plants. What's happening in the world of habitat and wildlife conservation as well. Natalie's been in the field. We've got 16 or so planetary polar nest boxes that she's maintained at Brownell Park around Morgan City. We work with Nicholls State University, some of the staff and faculty here, students here as well, in addition to BTNEP staff, to band sparrows at the Nicholls Farm. Is going to talk a little, Dr. Botno, I should say, is going to talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. I had the opportunity to get out with Elena and work on the Purple Park Conservation Initiative. You see us there with the martin that had recently been banded and was about to be released. And then you all heard from Dr. Clay, who's up here now at the last meeting about the Diamondback Terrapin Head Starting Program, who were able to participate in the event, just 2 weeks ago now, 2 weeks ago, to release those down around Bouchon. So good to see those animals getting back out into their environment. Lots is going on always with the water quality program, of course. We've been out and about spreading the word about the good work that's being done. We were at the South Central Planning and Development Commission, who partners with us on many of these projects, to present to them some of the work that we're doing as it relates to water quality. And then we were able to participate in the Southern Division of the American Fisheries Society. We had a National Estuary Program session that we were able to organize to talk about water quality work, not just here in the Barataria-Terrebonne National Estuary, but across the Morgan Gulf, some of our sister BDPs. And the last one is more of a plug, really, to let folks know that we are expanding the home sewage assistance program from Bayou Lafourche, Bayou Folds into Upper Bayou Terrebonne region. So want to get the word out that we can help you fix your home sewage system, or if you know somebody, a relative, a neighbor, constituent, you name it, that might need some help with their home sewage system. We have a program available to help that. Obviously, that impacts water quality significantly within the estuary. So I guess one of the themes of this morning's talk really is this kind of estuary explorer theme. And as a staff, we were making an effort to get around the estuary and learn some more about some of the features of the estuary as well. And so we were had good fortune to be in St. Charles Parish earlier or late last month, I should say. We visited the Davis Pond freshwater diversion structure, probably one of the most influential restoration projects in the Barataria side of the estuary. We were able to meet with folks from CPRA, folks with the Restore the Delta campaign and National Wildlife Federation at the structure, the intake structure of the river, view the outfall channel, where river water is transported from the river into the estuary, and then get on an airboat and check out the outfall area, the area in the immediate region where the water essentially enters the estuary. So it was a good experience. It was good to see the impacts of that. That's a project that, of course, is primary focus is to moderate salinities in the basin. After that, we were able to hop across the river, and we did venture a little bit out of the estuary, but it's an impressive infrastructure that we were able to see thanks to the United States Army Corps of Engineers. We went by Gary, we were able to get a little bit of the history of that project, how it's operated, and to get an up close and personal tour right in the tram across the structure, which was a pretty cool thing to do. So you guys are here in Thibodaux. There's been a lot going on, of course, in Thibodaux and Lafourche Parish. Many of our meetings are here. The last two have been here, including this one. But one of the things that we want to try to do as we're moving around the estuary is point out some points of interest in some of the estuary. So you see some of those here. I mentioned the Bayou Country Children's Museum. You see one of the storm drain murals there that you can see. You visit our Date Plant Nursery, which is just down the bayou from here, off of Thoroughbred Park Drive, is that right? Yeah, obviously Thoroughbred Drive. We've got native seeds in the library here in Thibodaux. You can go check that out. The Wetland Acadian Cultural Center, of course, is a great place to visit in the Louisiana Cajun Bayou Visitor Center as well. And there's some others you see listed there. These were also listed, of course, in the meeting announcement that you would have seen over the last several weeks. So lots coming up. This looks out rather far. We wanted to give folks an idea of kind of where we're headed in terms of events. May 30th, I mentioned the pollinator plant giveaway. June 5th and August 7th, we'll have Farm Fridays. Note that in July, we will not have Farm Fridays. That's June 5th and August 7th. Next management conference meeting, we're planning to be in Morgan City on the 13th of August. White Lugal, I think Dr. LaFleur is going to talk a little about that. I won't mention too much there, but October 6th is the date for that. October 31st is the date for our next paddle event, another one of our sort of signature and larger events. The location is TBD at the moment. If you have a favorite paddle in the estuary, we'd love to hear about it. And if you have a recommendation, please let me, Michelle, Dr. Fontenot, one of our staff, know. I certainly will consider that. We are going to travel way up basin, probably as far as the new we've been, to New Roads for our November management conference meeting. Note that in some of the announcements you saw recently, the date was November 12th. We've since learned that the Louisiana Science Teachers Association is, I think, 11, 12, and 13th. It's that week anyway, so there was a conflict. So we're going to move that management conference to the first Thursday in November, which is the 5th. And then we'll be back here in February and probably May in the next year. So there were just a couple of things I wanted to mention that I don't have slides for, and then I promise I'll be quiet and get into the interesting stuff. But we are here today. One of the biggest parts of business that we do as a management conference, of course, each year is the review and hopefully approval of our work plans. And so we're entering into that next cycle, of course, of work plans and projects that we hope to fund as management conference, starting in October of this year on into next year. And so as we sit here, I can tell you that we have struggled a bit with our last round of projects. Those of you that were awarded funds last year have felt the frustration, I think, that the staff has it, Dr. Roberts has it, Michelle and I have, of course, in getting agreements in place to actually transfer the funds from the program to you all. So the good news is that in the last couple of weeks, we've broken through on some of those. We've been able to get some sub-awards taken care of. We have one contract in place right now. I don't want to get too far into the weeds on this, but just know that that we're working very hard with the folks that are working on this now, which are at the Board of Regents level. They're in Baton Rouge at that agency, and we're trying to get these pushed across the finish line as quickly as we can. So this is really the result of a couple of things. There have been some staff that have moved from Lone Pine to Board of Regents in Baton Rouge, and there are some new requirements that have come to light, I guess, in terms of us getting agreements like this in place from the Office of State Purchasing, State Procurement, I should say, and the Board of Regents. So I know it's been frustrating. It's been a very frustrating first half of the year for us here as well, but know that we are working diligently and doing our best to get these across the finish line. To mitigate these issues in this next round of projects, we have asked Board of Regents and our staff if we can hold a workshop of sorts to talk about some of the kind of new processes and procedures and whatnot that we're undertaking right now to let applicants who are awarded funds through the program know kind of what's in store, what's in store, what will be expected of them. So wanted to mention that. Also, those of you that follow the legislature, there's been a lot going on there related to Board of Regents. To segue into a different topic, but related to Board of Regents. So there were a couple of bills that were submitted this session that would affect the functions and the areas that Board of Regents oversees. One of those was submitted by Senator Abraham. The original version of the bill would have moved Lone Pine, and we're an affiliate of Lone Pine, remember, from under Board of Regents under the LSU system. There was lots of consternation about that in the legislature, as you might imagine. There were various versions of that bill that would have changed that slightly. I'll not go through all of that. But the version that passed the Senate, just the Senate, I should say, on Monday, did not move Lone Pine anywhere, but it established a study commission to evaluate basically the best place for Lone Pine. What's the best future for Lone Pine? And so that study commission will be made up of the representatives from each of the university systems around the state, and be also Dr. Roberts will be a part of that commission. So I only mention that because obviously we're affiliated with Lone Pine, but perhaps Lone Pine affects us, and just want you to be aware kind of where we stand there. That did pass the Senate. It has to go to the House, where there'll be a whole new round of debate. I don't know what the ultimate outcome will be of that bill, but that's where it stands right now. So just wanted to make you aware of that. Those are some things that the program, of course, we're considering and watching very closely, and are interested in terms of what that outcome might be. So I will stop there, and I'm happy to answer any questions or turn it back to you.
It's what that Senate bill number?
It's 235, I believe. 235. Yeah.
That's the other bill.
That's for the motion.
235 is a different bill that I've been tracking. Excuse me. What is it?
484.
I think it's 484. Yeah, 484. Good question, Martin. I should have known the answer to that. It's Senator Abraham is the sponsor, so I'll have to cross-reference it.
Are there any other questions? Okay, and we'll turn this over to Dr. Gary LaFleur for the foundation report.
Hey everybody, I'm Gary. I'm going to call up my BTNEP board members to stand up at least. That's Dwayne Bourgeois. He is the chair of our mitigation event committee right now. Okay, thanks, Dwayne. And Becky, and is Rissa here? Bill's in the back. Hey, it's Bill Urash. He's also on the BTNEP board. And And to say here, oh, it's awesome. Again. Right, they're all part of the BTNEP. So we don't see them at every meeting, but you do see them every now and then. We usually try to stay a little bit behind the scenes. And we have a few announcements today, but one of the things that I wanted to remind you what the BTNEP does is we are the 501c3 that assists BTNEP in many of their projects, including some of the things that we're going to be talking about today in our action plans. And one of the things that we helped this spring with was with now some of y'all noticed that we weren't just in LaFouche this year, we expanded into Terrebonne. That was the first year that we did that with the help of people in Louisiana. So we were happy to help with that. And not only that, but we also partnered with one of the delegates here, that's the Cajun Music Preservation Society, to get Chubby Carrier for kind of an end of the Bayou cleanup celebration. You know, we're kind of hitting several things in BTNEP's mission whenever we do that. In the conservation as well as some celebration and cultural preservation on the Bayou. So we were happy about that. Kind of in the same vein, we do the White Food Gala every year. And so I'm going to let Becky make some announcements, but I wanted to remind you that we've been doing that in LaFouche Parish for many years. We love LaFouche Parish, but we do want to expand across the estuary, just like Brenda was just talking about. Whereas we have friends that are moving north, we said, hi, we're going to move south. Not afraid to move south to the White Food Gala. Also, we are usually stuck in September, and we are expanding into other dates this year to make sure that our friends at LumCon can make it. Yeah. Right, you ready? Becky is the chair of the White Food Gala Committee.
Yeah.
You got it for us.
So as Greg mentioned, the date is October the 6th. So please put that in your calendars. This is your save the date. He also showed that it is at the Danos Foundation or the Danos facility on the corner of 24. So the street that goes straight home and then Highway 90. So we're still right off the Highway 90 corridor. So it's easy for our friends who have to travel to us. And it's a lot bigger of a facility than what we had at Spars. Spars is still going to be our caterer. We still are completely indebted to them. They're cooking your crawfish today. They're going to cook for you at the gala. So they will still be the caterer, but we just needed a bigger facility. We tried to grow more this year, and we did. And so we're going to try and grow more every year because we still have people coming in and wanting to support us and attend, and they weren't able to at Sports. And so this is a great opportunity for us to partner with Danos and have it there. And if you've ever been to their facility, it's absolutely gorgeous. The aesthetics are still what fits now.
Thanks, Vic.
You're welcome.
So to remind you what you just said, the party is that way the 4-lane crosses the 4-lane. The only places in the estuary where there's 4 lanes cross. Last thing I wanted to say was we got some support from several of y'all from some of the recent fundraising events like Give NOLA and Give Bayou. We appreciate that. And if you're kind of itching to send a donation for the White Food Gala, you can always talk to Nicole Adams. She knows how to get that to us. But we're going to send official invites out soon, and we're probably going to have another official person that's going to be taking those donations soon. But like I said, if you're in a hurry to do that, Nicole Adams will be happy. That's it from Barataria-Terrebonne Estuary Foundation. Thank you.
We're all good again. I'm gonna turn the microphone over to Michelle Felterman to go over the draft-based funding work plans.
So you should have QR codes on every table. I encourage you to follow along for our base funding work plans and then also our IDP plans. Great, so we're going to start with our base funding, also known as our 320 funding. Just a couple things to note. The overall funding this year is $850,000. That's the same as last year, actually the same as the past 3 years. So flat funding in this day and age is good funding, so excited to see that. If you look at the top right box, these are the two projects that we were able to fund this year with this work plan. We'll have our staff go into more detail about each project, but we have one going to South Louisiana Wetlands Discovery Center for the River Festival Folklife Village, and then another one to Dr. Zane at Lumcon looking at cyanobacteria. The bottom right box, this is probably the most important part of this entire slide. Lumcon very generously was able to waive 38% of their indirect, which we can use as non-federal match. Something of importance with these funds, they require a 1-to-1 non-federal match. And so we're able to use this waived indirect to cover a portion of that, and then a portion of our state general fund to cover the rest. What this allows us to do is use the remainder of our state general fund to use for a non-federal match for other outside grants. So we're able to hopefully diversify BTNEP's financial portfolio going forward. Our second work plan is our IJA. This is the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. This is our 5th year of IJA funding, and this is the final year of this funding. So this year we're getting $910,100. And I know it's a little bit hard to see, but the projects are the spots to the right. I guess it's a good thing you can't see it. That means we have a ton. So we have 7 projects, 2 are program-wide, and then 5 are to outside entities. Again, we'll have the staff go through those in more detail. But I'll cover the 2 program-wide projects. The first is an update to our CCNP. So this is our Comprehensive Conservation and Management Plan. EPA requires us to do an update of this every 10 years. Our last one was done in 2019. So we're coming up for a review and a potential update. So we wanted to set aside some money in the event that we do need to do an update. And then the second program-wide project is, of course, our title draft calendar. So this money is set aside for 2020. Is there any questions on the overall budget for these program-wide projects? All right. No questions, and I will turn it over to Andrew and Steve to walk through the water quality projects.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Barron. I'm the senior scientist with BTNEP, and we're going to start talking about the 2 water quality projects that are in the 2 work plans that we have. So the first one I'm going to talk about, which is sources of toxic cyanobacteria to southern Louisiana estuaries. This project is going to be conducted by Lumcon, and this is Dr. Zhang and Dr. Kevin Duclos at Lumcon. Their funding source, this project is going to be in the 320 work plan. If you're looking at that, on your phone using the QR code. And then the funding amount is going to be $62,430. And so this project is basically going to go in and do sampling at 2 locations along the Honda navigation channel. So one is at Blue Works and one is at the Lumcon facility. And so they're going to do weekly sampling, and they're going to actually collect phytoplankton, and then they're going to use observations they find in the field, like some of the in-situ monitoring, like temperature, pH, that sort of thing. And then they use AI to compare the species that they find. So they're trying to predict basically what causes toxic cyanobacteria blooms, going from inland to Terrebonne Bay. And that's really what's going to happen in that project. Do you have any questions about that project? All right, and let's see the talk about the next one.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. The second project under the water quality is understanding fish kills in Barataria-Terrebonne estuary system, an irrigation project, and this project is proposed under IJA grant. This is the performing organization is LSU, Department of Oceanography and Coastal Sciences. Dr. Cassandra Gillespie is the PI on this project. This project will compile and distribute scientific resources on fish kills and water quality in partnership with state and federal agencies. This project will develop aquatic science lesson plans according to the LEA student standards for 6th and 7th grade life sciences. And this also brought this project trained middle school teachers in aquatic sciences, data analysis, and curriculum implementation. This fosters long-term collaboration between LSU scientists and Louisiana educators. So that's the objectives of this project. Do you have any questions?
But they're gonna take information on fish skills in Louisiana and develop an educational.
Yeah, develop a lesson plan on that, and they do a virtual workshop for at least 50 teachers in the Estuary basin. Yeah.
So, sorry, just to summarize, these were project ideas that came out of our data gaps action plan team meeting that we had early fall of last year before our solicitation. So that helped us kind of focus in on what our experts thought were kind of our areas that we were missing projects in that we needed to focus on. So that's where these came out of, and then, you know, the PIs answered that call, which we appreciate. All right, so who is next up on this?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Nikki Boudreau. I am the Education and Engagement Coordinator. Emily Grove, who is our Volunteer Marine Debris Coordinator, and I chair the Community Engagement Action Plan team. And as Andrew just mentioned, all of our action plan teams met to recognize data gaps, and some of the things that our Community Engagement Action Plan team considered this year were things like adult education and community learning, cultural integration, seasonal festivals, digital storytelling and oral histories, and expanding our geographic reach into the upper and middle estuary. And so the projects that we chose this year through this action plan team each meet several of those data gaps. The first one is the expanded Folk Life Village at the Rougarou Fest, and this will be for the 2027 festival. It was funded through our Section 320 funds in the amount of $44,000. The Rougarou Festival Folk Life Village expansion is not only going to involve infrastructure improvements, but it will also allow for collaboration with local cultural groups, experts in wildlife, environmental organizations, Nicholls, and BTNEP to ensure cultural authenticity and environmental relevance throughout the project, also providing for a folk life internship or apprenticeship for a Nicholls student. The Rougarou Fest Folk Life Village expansion will ultimately transform a section of the festival grounds into an interactive hub for cultural learning and exchange. So this will be an area where there can be cultural demonstration tents, cooking demonstrations, and other areas to highlight unique aspects of our regional heritage, involving things from traditional boat building and weaving to music, food, and oral storytelling. So that one hits on several of those target areas that our action plan team suggested. Our second project is the Heart of Chapalayan Museum Trail kiosks. This one is expanding our reach into the middle region of our estuary. The performing organization is the Fairport Bell River Museum. It is an IJA funded project, and the amount is $66,000. This museum is currently under construction. This will give them an opportunity to install 9 weather-resistant interpretive kiosks along an outdoor trail. They have an outdoor wetlands trail. These kiosks will be at key narrative points along the trail to teach visitors about the estuary ecosystem, native species, migratory birds, and wetland functions. also include QR linked audio stories that will be in French and English, and a dedicated trail story website that will house audio content, transcripts, supplemental learning materials that can be incorporated into the education system, and then also collaboration with local French-speaking elders and cultural tradition bearers to develop oral histories. So again, another project that meets several of those criteria that we recognize as important. Are there any questions about either of these? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hi folks, Michael Mancini, Invasive Species Marine Programs Coordinator. There's only one invasive species project selected this year from our action plan team meeting, and it's with UNO, Dr. Marty O'Connell, assessing potential impacts of invasive giant apple snails on egg-laying native fishes. So we're happy to be working with Dr. O'Connell again. He's got a long track record working with BTNEP, going back to Rio Grande cichlid work, tilapia work most recently, and he's also doing mussel survey, freshwater mussel survey. So this, through his work down in Plaquemine along Highway 23, he's noticed a distinct sort of presence and absence of apple snails. Below a point around Point La Hache, there's really no apple snails, even though it's still very fresh water in most of those sites, especially within the levee system. So it's a pretty simple project. He's going to be attempting to determine are these snails having an impact on egg-laying fishes? So step one is he's going to sample for presence or absence of apple snails, and step two, he'll sample 6 sites with apple snails and 6 without apple snails, and step 3 is he'll be looking at the fish assemblage and the relative abundance of these egg-laying fishes. So obviously, there's really only 2 outcomes of this project. Either they're having a statistically significant impact on our native fishes, or they're not. So this could significantly add to the urgency of management for apple snails. Any questions? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Natalie Waters. I'm the Conservation Coordinator, and we have 2 biological resources action plan team projects under the Azure work plan. The first one being the derelict crab traps detection and bycatch assessment in the Terrebonne and Barataria basins using imaging sonar and automated species identification, guiding removal practices with advanced technology. The budget is $87,437. The performing organization is Welcom. And the overall objective of the grant is the main objective of the proposed project is to apply a reliable method to precisely locate derelict traps in the Terrebonne Barataria basins and to determine the extent of the bycatch prior to removal to enhance efficiency of management actions. Our real-time monitoring will allow us to focus removal efforts during regulatory commercial crab fishery closures on traps occupied by ghost fish targeted blue crabs and untargeted species such as Barataria-Terrebonne. In collaboration with active partners like LWF, commercial fishermen, and local communities, Pointe-Notion Indian Tribe, the approach will guide removal practices by providing unprecedented information about the exact location, GPS coordinates, depth, presence of debris hazards that may interfere with traps removal, bycatch rate, species identification of ghost fish individuals, and their behavioral or health status. Overall, this project aims to map the derelict traps locations prior to closure and removal effort, and to target the derelict crabs of high priority in case of bycatch of endangered species and the Terrebonne and Barataria basins to improve conservation efforts to threatened and commercially valuable bycatches. Any questions? Okay.
Hey everyone, my name is Delaney LeBlanc. I'm a biological resources coordinator. The second project, the biological resources action plan team is evaluating marsh and mangrove biophysical resilience to storm events and creative wetlands. This is the organization is LUMCON, and the PI for this project would be Dr. Helen Steinmuller. This is $165,466, but it also has additional contributions that include Dr. Robert's salary, who's also a partner in this project. This is a project that will generate the first empirically grounded evaluation of how mangroves and salt marshes, growing both in isolation and together, contribute to soil biophysical resilience to storm surge in created and natural marshes, with particular emphasis on the barrier islands of the BTNEP. This in turn can inform best practices for marsh creation projects. Any questions?
So, how are you defining creative weapons for this?
I think that would be restoration projects, marsh restoration projects, as understood it, and perhaps Dr. Roberts.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're existing ones that have been created. So one of the first sites is on Whiskey Island, and there's parts of that were a natural wetland that's transitioned from marsh to mangrove, and there's also a huge area that was created with the project that have created. So it's basically looking at the contrast between those. Basically, the soil properties are very different with the created marshes. Weapons than the natural, and so how does that influence the resistance and resilience?
Are you comparing to natural as well?
What? Yeah, so the natural parts of it of these islands, then it's in very close proximity in the same islands. Let's focus on their islands. There are areas of it that are natural. Yeah, and if you go and you look at these places, it's actually pretty astonishing because look at where the created wetland areas are. The mangroves are at least twice as tall as the natural. A lot of it has to do with the dredge material that was brought in, how loaded with nutrients it is compared to the natural. So the question is, how does that change the resilience if you have a natural versus a created one?
Any other questions? One final note, all of these projects and the two overall budgets that we presented at the beginning are contingent on us actually receiving the money from EPA. So not a done deal yet, but we will be submitting the grants in the next day or so.
Okay, so now it's our turn to do our job as a management conference. I'd like to remind everybody that part of what we do at voting over to the management conference is to approve this budget that we proposed to us over there. So I'd like you guys to think about it. If there's any discussion about any of this, we can do that now. Any discussion? Okay. Someone make a motion.
I move.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, well, congratulations, it passed.
Let's think about it.
Yeah. Sure.
All right, thank you. Dr. Condo and Manager Crawfish members, it's always a relief to get that approval behind us, and we'll move on through the process and get some more good work done. It's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker here today. This is a topic I know that's of interest to just about everybody in the room. We've got Mr. Marty Bienvenu, who's Executive Director of LOSCO, which is part of the Louisiana Department of Conservation and Energy, formerly DNR. Many of us knew it as DNR, and Jennifer Bell are here as well to talk with us a little bit about ongoing loop oil spill, of course, off the coast of the estuary, in addition to the 2024 Mighty Flush oil spill. So, welcome.
Thank you. So,
There's a switch on the side there. If you push it up, you should turn it on.
can you hear me?
Yeah, that's great.
All right. So appreciate everybody being here. I'm new to Loop.
I'm sorry, I'm new to, Roscoe. Been on loop the whole time, so it's stuck in my brain. Been with Roscoe since, October. Prior to coming to the state, I was in oil spill and hazmat for 30 years. So I fit pretty well with the Roscoe guide. So going into loop, on October 26th, a report from the oil spill was reported by Luke at the deep water port south of Randall. Spill happened in the middle of the night. Once the crew noticed that there was a smell of oil, they shut down operations. Immediately, Luke started responding to clean up the spill. In the days following, they found that it was a mechanical failure on a transfer hose that was transferred from the ship. That hose was removed, replaced, and operations were shut down for a time while the spill was cleaned up. In the days following that, a unified command was put together, which consisted of the U.S. Coast Guard, the state representative, which is Roscoe, and Luke representative. At the time, estimated 750 barrels was reported spilled. Over the next couple of days, while the oil was offshore, Luke brought in 2 95-foot skimming vessels and 3 45-foot response vessels. These vessels skimmed oil for 3 days in an effort to recover as much as possible to eliminate land impacts. Drones were also used during the day to monitor the recovery process and report back to the unified command. Once land impact was noticed, additional assets were deployed within the Terrebonne Bay area. At the height of the spill, they had over 100 vessels and over 650 people. It was estimated that 30 miles of containment foam was used. I believe the estimate was a little more than that. Some of the technology that was used was drones, aerial footage, fixed wing aircraft, and helicopters. Daily flights were done out of Homa to monitor the spill cleanup. And no dispersants were used. I know that was part of a lot of the reports to take questions about dispersants, but that was never requested nor approved. During the spill, of course, we had wildlife set up. We had a wildlife management team, actually a couple of teams that would go out daily, monitor wildlife and recover any soiled wildlife or impacted wildlife. We had a facility set up in the area to rehab any animals that were recovered or birds. And then also we had the agencies involved was Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and NOAA. All of those agencies were on site every day in boats on the islands and helping us monitor that. We also set up a 1-985-368-9866 hotline number for any fishermen or residents that saw affected wildlife to call in so that we can respond quickly. During the spill on the 14th of March, the Louisiana Department of Health instituted a precautionary closure for oysters in areas 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 21. We worked with LDH and Department of Wildlife to pull samples and test oysters, shrimp, crab, and finfish. Once those analyticals were back, LDH was quick to reopen those fisheries and continue with that process. As it stands right now, the current status of the spill is these are segments on the pie graph to the right. 77.27% of the segments that initially were identified have been signed off. 21.21% still remain. 1.52% is being evaluated. The SCAT team's going out and clearing that. At the moment, there's about 51 miles of lined areas that are still being cleaned. In the beginning of this spill, all the way through, the trustees were invited by Luke to participate in the NERDA, and
we accepted that invitation and they were cooperative throughout the entire process. So we had NERDA folks throughout from the pre-assessment all the way to today. And then I'll bring up Jennifer Bill to discuss the value of food incident.
Stay up here. So yeah, you want to go?
You're welcome to, if you want to talk, whatever you like to do.
When Fred originally reached out, he mentioned Loop, of course, but also the Crescent Midstream Biolafouche incident that occurred basically almost 2 years ago now. And so on July 27th, 2024, a lot of you here probably remember that there was a crude oil release into Biolafouche in Raceland around where Highway 182 and 308 intersect. Crude oil traveled approximately 8 miles down Biolafouche. This is from the EPA storyboard, which is linked at the top there. But basically, what happened was there was a oil surge and a 16-inch pipeline. And at the time, that white tank there that you see in the middle of the map there was out of service. And there were 2 temporary frac tanks that were within the secondary containment berm. Those unfortunately overflowed. And to make matters worse, the discharge valve at the site was open. And so when the release occurred, the oil started moving down this drainage pathway and hit a culvert system on Canal Street, and then started flowing down Canal Street into Biolafouche. So this is a picture of the out of service tank with the 2 frac tanks within the secondary berm there. What you're looking at now is the entry point. Oops, wrong one. Sorry about that. This slide here is the entry point where the oil actually entered Biolafouche. And these are drone images, by the way. The drone was highly utilized during this incident, as it is now in most incidents, as you can imagine. And then this is just a sort of a bird's eye view from the drone of the extent of oil moving down Biolafouche downstream. And you can see some hard boom there, sort of corralling the oil in Biolafouche and mitigating how far it's getting down, but also providing the opportunity for collection points along the way for physical recovery with skimmers. Agency response. So this response really started with the Unified Command coming together with Crescent Midstream, who was the responsible party. The federal on-scene coordinator was identified as the EPA. LOSCO was the state on-scene coordinator, and the Lafouche Parish government was very, very involved and super helpful in messaging and throughout the entire incident. The ICP, or the Incident Command Post, was eventually relocated to the Lafouche Parish DOC, which was very helpful for providing, a great accommodation for all the response people, all the agencies, all the ADRO communities and cleanup crews, that kind of thing. So that was very helpful. And then we had really a plethora of additional agencies involved on the local level, state, and federal level throughout the response. So from day one, really, within just the first 8 hours, I wasn't on the response personally, but when I look at the list of bullets here, just within the first 8 hours, that to me is a successful first day. If you have to go through these are the items you really do want to see happen. Right away, the parish president actually activated cleanup crews, and because the RP initially was unknown. But Crescent quickly stood up as the responsible party, stepped in activated a spill response group, as well as set up an ICP, the first one, down in Raceland, and then moved to the EOC, like I said. Air monitoring was ongoing and pretty much overseen by the EPA and LDEQ throughout the response, because as you can imagine, the spill along Bayou Lafourche, that's in people's backyards. It's in the back of people's businesses. Very visual. You could see it from the highway, you know. So we wanted to make sure that air monitoring is going on, as well as the messaging to people. So the parish really helped with that. They posted information on their Facebook page, just letting the public know what was going on. By the end of the day, they had their first press conference, which again, the messaging was very important in this particular spill. So all in all, a successful response, considering the location that we were in and just how public it was. I'll get to that in a second. So essentially, this is covering the first 8 hours, but basically the response went on until the mid of November 24. So eventually, the response did end up in more of a maintenance phase, and the RP, along with the state on-scene coordinator, was within LOSCO, DEQ, Environmental Response Group, and the parish president, basically under discussion and after site visits, determined that the cleanup was complete and the response ceased. So that brings us basically to where we are today, albeit almost 2 years later. So the NRDA process, or the NERDA process, for those of you, I don't know if everybody in the room is familiar with that process, but basically it's a process that state and federal natural resource trustees follow when there is an oil spill incident, or can follow. We basically, under the Oil Pollution Act and our state side-by-side read, kind of the Oil Spill Prevention and Response Act, we are authorized as state trustees to basically make the public whole and the environment whole from injuries that occurred from an oil spill. And so with that in mind, the NERDA process itself is like a 3-phase process, right? Pre-assessment, restoration planning, and restoration implementation. And so before we actually enter into the process, a lot of times the trustees will kind of preliminarily scope injuries. And we do that actually. This is from our environmental impact statement from the RRP program, or Regional Restoration Planning Program. We identify which potentially injured resources might have occurred as a result of the spill. And also it allows, this is a nexus table, basically where you see check marks will denote what restoration types would be appropriate to address certain injuries. And so we can look very early on and get an idea of what types of restoration might we do. That's our endpoint, right? We want to make the environment whole. We want to compensate the public for lost injuries. We do that by way of restoration, right? Compensatory restoration. So we start looking at these types of things early on. And so right now, where we are in Bayou Lafourche is we haven't actually entered into a NERDA process. We are sort of in this preliminary scoping phase. And so the trustees, though, are working through what might be potentially injured. Obviously, you and I can sit here as, you know, resource-minded people and natural resource enthusiasts, scientists, and say, well, you could possibly have affected Bayou shoreline, aquatic organisms, wildlife, birds. Also with this one, you have to look at human use, right? Like I said earlier, it was behind people's houses and public, possibly recreation areas. Those are all things we have to take into consideration, because we can, not only can we restore for natural resources and the services they provide, but we also can restore for recreational impacts that might have occurred. So with that, as the trustees are still sort of scoping this one out, I would encourage folks, and I apologize, I did not put the URL bigger in the slide, or I need to get a QR code.
That's on the list of things to do. We have it's data.losco.org, basically. That is our Louisiana Oil Spill Management System. It's basically a data portal for our office, LOSCO. And we have many things that you can go look up. You can keep track of spills that are happening, narrative projects that we're implementing, but it's also, there's a portal on there where you can go and submit projects. And so I would encourage folks in the room that if you have any project ideas, to please go in and submit projects. And that way we can start telling ahead of time, do we actually have restoration alternatives to address some of the injuries? And, you know, we can talk about Bayou-Lafourche, but loop is probably coming down the road as well. You know, spills happen, unfortunately. And so part of what the trustees have to make sure we have are restoration types for the injuries particular to environments. And so if you have recreational projects or public use projects, I heard a lot when y'all were explaining some of the projects and studies that y'all are doing as part of the management conference. Like some of those could actually be great projects. If you have a wish list, basically, things that aren't funded, you know, you can talk to me, we can talk about what to submit, or feel free to submit. They can be really fleshed out projects with costs and plans, or they can truly be conceptual. Just if they're conceptual, you'll probably hear from me and say, hey, do you have any more information? But we truly do want to receive projects that helps us better be able to possibly take on additional NRDAs and have restoration alternatives available. So with that, that's the status of where we are with Bayou-Lafourche. I know that I do have one other plug here. Marty, do you want to do this or you want me to do it?
Yeah, we've been working with the Texas General Land Office and the Oceans and Wildlife Institute in Texas to put on a conference in September. It's similar to the Clean Golf Conference. Clean Golf kind of got away from the basics of all spill response and conservation and got a little more commercial. So we want to get it back to the basics is basically what we're doing here. This year it's going to be in Texas. In 2 years we're going to have it here in Louisiana, hopefully Baton Rouge or maybe New Orleans. One of the great things that we're going to be doing at this conference, we're going to have some workshops. One of the bigger workshops we're going to have is wildlife recovery and rehab. So if you guys want to scan the QR code, it'd be great. It's a great way to get back to the reason we started putting these conferences on.
Yeah, so if you know people or are interested, we've really strived to make it very affordable too. So we'd love to have some folks attend. And then finally, I just have our contact information there. Marty and I both, if you have any questions, I mean, we're happy to field questions right now. We can talk after, or, you know, feel free to follow up with us at any time. And I mean, I can definitely extend that, you know, we're part of the management conference. So, you know, if you guys ever need an update, we can, it doesn't even have to be as formal as this. We can just stand up at one of the meetings and provide what we know at the time on these particular incidents or anything else really. So, any questions? Sure.
I'm Gary Lafleur with Nicholls State University, and not everyone in the room understands like the language of oil spills. So, with the most recent oil spill that hit the Barrier Islands, can you remind us what it means when you say that it's been signed off? Does that mean it's been cleaned up? Because that area that you pointed to, everyone could tell that was Barrier Islands, but that is the Île Venier Barrier Island Refuge that's managed by Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries. And it's some of the only habitat that supports nesting of terns, brown pelicans, and then the feeding of many birds as well. There's terrapins back there, so there's a lot of coastal species that are species of concern that were in that area.
Yes, sir, absolutely. So
What I mean by signed off is we have a SCAT team that consists of state, federal, and RP. And they go out and assess the shorelines that have been cleaned. When it meets certain endpoints, they will put together a SCAT document, take pictures, bring that back to the Unified Command. The Unified Command will review it, ask questions, and we will sign off that there's no further treatment necessary at that specific location. And when I say 54 miles, if you think of Whiskey Island, I believe it's 8 miles long. So that's a predominant area that the soiling is. Whiskey Island, a little bit north of Whiskey, some marsh area right there, and then a little bit east of that area on an island north of Trinity is about the areas that are left to be cleaned or that are still being, I should say. One of the bigger habitats of those 3 islands was Raccoon Island. And we were very lucky that we had very minimal impact on Raccoon Island. Unfortunately, this spill happened right at the beginning of this season. So that was the main reason that U.S. Fish and Wildlife and Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries were so involved in the beginning of this from then until now. The minimum impacts on raccoon, we were able to get there quickly early in the nesting season, clean up what we could, and we shut down that island to end for traffic of boats or personnel. And we will continue to monitor that. Wildlife and Fisheries goes back, I think, weekly and just checks the island and make sure there's no more impacts on that island. But the segments that are left, in those segments, it doesn't mean the entire segment is soiled. It could be 100 feet, 200 feet in a particular segment. We don't sign off on that entire segment until that entire segment is clean. So that's what we're meaning by signed off, is no further treatments necessary in that particular segment.
So the NERDA trustees are actively engaged, and we are, as Marty mentioned. And so the next component of that will be the natural resource damage assessment. And so Marty is explaining to you like what's happening with response and cleanup, but definitely we have the NERDA trustees as well as Loop. We are in a cooperative process with them and our federal partners, NOAA and U.S. Fish and Wildlife, namely, that we are collecting the data we need. We are out in the field conducting bird surveys outside of just the response to NERDA surveys. So, we've been very busy, but rest assured, additional assessment, environmental assessment by NRDA is happening. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
One question for Marty. You mentioned Raccoon Island. Did you find any of the oil getting into the rocks around that island?
No, what we found was where the riprap was in the front. That water kind of funnels between those riprap. We caught a couple of tar balls on the beach itself, but we didn't notice any oil in the riprap at all.
That's good.
And it was very minimum impact on the island in general. I can't remember the exact total of bags we picked up, but it was a couple of bags of tar balls. That was it. So everything predominantly stopped at Whiskey Island, or the end of Whiskey Island.
Quick question. How long did the release continue to go on, and what was the final total count of barrels spilled?
So the release, it's hard to say how long it went on. Immediately when they smelled it, operation shut down. It was in the middle of the night. So there was no telling when the hose actually failed. The total 750 barrels is what was reported. They recovered over 600 barrels of material. The problem with the mass balance at the end of the spill is that you're not doing bulk recovery anymore. You're doing more solvent material recovery and vegetative recovery. So that's harder to calculate on the back end of the spill, but 750 barrels is estimated.
It wasn't like an ongoing, continuing release.
No, sir. No, sir. It was immediately stopped. And to give an idea on these hoses, it's an internal hose with an external float. So basically, if you consider a vacuum truck hose, and then there's a float around it, and then a jacket around it. So upon hooking up the hose and hooking up at night, also
They didn't see that. The only reason they noticed it is from the smell when they needed to start pumping.
Any other questions? Yes.
For Jennifer, was there ever a threat to the drinking water from Bayou Lafourche, being that the treatment plant is about to house?
Yeah, and I saw one of the, again, I sorry to say that I was not on the response, but I do remember that they did have to set up boom around the water intakes. And I know that the water district for Lafourche was involved, but I don't think there was ever any detrimental outcome of that. I think that that was thwarted through the, the booming and that kind of thing. So that's what I'm pretty sure about. If you want to talk additionally, I can try and connect you with someone, but I'm pretty sure that was it, or likely that would have been a component of the talk if it wasn't. But I do know there were booming strategies around some intakes, so yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, that was samples collected at the water plant.
There we go.
Repeatedly, they found no problems.
Thank you.
Okay.
Regarding the Bayou Lafourche spill, was there any enforcement against responsible party?
Our office does not conduct enforcement. However, so probably from DEQ or maybe EPA, I guess is what you're maybe thinking. I actually don't know. I'll just say that right out. I don't know if any enforcement was ever conducted. So I can follow up with you though. I know how to reach you.
Thank you, Marty. Jennifer, really appreciate that. It's great to have you all as part of the management conference. Obviously, to be available to update us on these things affecting the estuary. It was good to learn about the portal that you mentioned. I actually was not aware about that for proposing projects.
Yes.
And so I can tell you as program staff, I think what they've looked at and
Yes,
perhaps submit some things to you. I know you offered, but I would offer the program staff as well. If there are folks that are part of the management conference that might have a concept that you want to talk through or flesh out, or you need some assistance at submitting it through that portal, we're happy to help you as well. So just let me know and we can do that. And then my last piece would be that should the damage assessment process move forward and some of those actions be identified that need to be implemented to mitigate the impacts of the spill, we as a program staff stand ready to help to implement those should it be. So thank you.
No, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So.
All right. Good morning, everybody. We have a change in schedule. Our scheduled speaker for this time is running a little bit late, so I'm going to jump up ahead and take up some of his time there. I'm here to talk to you about some good things that are happening in Nicholls Farm. A few years ago, I presented an overview of what we did over there. And I'm not going to mention all of that stuff, but I'm going to talk about a few things that we're doing. If you don't know, the Nicholls Farm is about 3 miles down the bayou from here. If you're going down the bayou, you go underneath the Foos Crossing. It's right there on the right. And its footprint is actually larger than Nicholls campus. So it's pretty substantial in size. A couple of features I want to point out, of course, BTNEP has their native plant nursery there. We're bordered by a railroad, so if you like trains, you can hang out there and see a bunch of trains passing by. The headwaters of Bayou Falls go through there, through the waters there. So we have a single bridge that connects the front of the farm to the back of the farm. And so all that's going to be sort of tied into what I'm talking about today. Since 2006 is when I really started to become more involved at the farm. I started at Nicholls in 2002 and immediately saw that there's a lot of things that we could do at Nicholls Farm. So we decided as a group to make the farm as collaborative of a piece of property as we can. In other words, we want to invite as many partners to come and do stuff at the farm. We started that partnership in 2006 when we became part of the Louisiana Native Plant Initiative with the Natural Resources Conservation Service. We established small plots that contain single species of important native Louisiana plants there that we still maintain today. I want to stress that. Some of those photos you're looking at now have been in the ground since 2006. We know they can withstand drought. We know they can withstand very wet conditions, and that we have resilient species here that are local to what we do. We also have an MOU with BTNEP, and of course our native plant nurseries there. I see Gary is here. He's one of the ones that made that happen. We came in and worked on an MOU together many years ago. So again, the Nicholls Farm, we want it to be a collaborative space, much like a cultural center is, right? We built this place here to bring a lot of groups together, and we're following the same kind of model through the farm. So one of the first projects I want to talk to you about is this Nicholls wetland. We were approached by Dustin Limited to install this wetland over there. Now I know Andrew and Silva have been monitoring bayou folks for many years and found out that it's an impaired waterway. Impaired meaning it has a lot of nutrients. And so the Natural Resource Conservation Service has money to put in these wetlands where we pump in the nutrient-rich water, let the plants remove the nutrients, and then put the clean water back into the bayou to reduce the amount of nutrients that are getting to the Gulf. That's what the purpose of this wetland was. So Dustin Limited used funding from NRCS to fund this project. They designed, engineered the project, and they hired Woodland Construction to do the work. And this was completed in March of 2023. So we've been operating this now for 3 years. And we took an old cow pasture, and we're right against the bayou was high land, but as you move away from the bayou, it became a little bit lower in elevation. So we scraped up some dirt around there, made some channels, made some ponds to build those levees, installed a pump, pumped it in, and then we converted that cow pasture into a functional wetland. And this place is incredible. We get to do, we just had a master's student defend her thesis yesterday. That's the first master's thesis that came out of working on nutrient analysis in this. We had an undergraduate student that presented his senior research project this semester who did work looking at the fish community assemblages out in this wetland over there. So we're doing that. We bring summer school groups in to do stuff to learn about wetlands. We use that. Our own courses use these wetlands. So this is a very functional thing. We use it to engage the public. And what we really like about it and what we want to start showcasing, we want to get public more engaged out there is when you build habitat, you get a lot of nice visitors. So these are some photos that our colleague Deb Lilly has taken. The waterfowl that come out to this wetland is phenomenal in the fall. We had groups of blue-winged teal, green-winged teal, gadwalls, coots, gallinuts. You just think that the water was just alive with birds, and so it was pretty cool. And so we benefit from that. We like to bring groups out there along the perimeter in this way. We partnered with the Louisiana Iris Conservation Initiative, and we planted about 8,000 irises along that perimeter, and starting in 2003, 2004. So these pictures that you see of the irises from this spring, early April, essentially we got a hedge of native irises that when you look at it from a distance, it's like a floating cloud of purple along the wetland. And so we preserve these irises here, and we can also now, because they'll basically double their population every year, we can go out there and dig up thousands of irises for conservation purposes and transport them else, and they just keep replenishing themselves. So we have this source of a Louisiana native plant that is going to be held as long as we can maintain this wetland system. Now, I'm going to switch gears a bit. I'm a fishery biologist, and I did my master's thesis in the Atchafalaya River Basin. I've been hunting and fishing in the Atchafalaya Basin since the early 80s. And so I know this place well, and I really enjoy it. And what I've learned over the time is what most people know is that seasonal flood pulse is what really drives the ecology of that region. So what this figure is showing you right now is each of those black lines is the monthly average water level for the Atchafalaya River. So you can see in 1973, that's that big flood that we had for those of you that remember the 73 flood. If you remember the drought in 1988, you can see how low the water was for that year. But if you take all those years, say for the month of April, you take the average over that period, you get that red line. And so what this red line is, this is what describes the annual flood pulse, or the typical type of flood pulse that you would see. For the highest water in the spring and lowest water in the fall. Of course, in the springtime, the swamps are all flooded, we get crawfish. This year was one of the lowest water levels I've ever seen in the spring. Where I hunt, I've got deer stands, and when I walk to my deer stands, I see crawfish traps out there. The water may get 6 feet deep. Okay, it didn't even flood out there this year. That's how low the water was. So when that water floods out there, it provides a lot of access for fishes to go out there to reproduce. The low water in the fall allows the mammals to proliferate, allows the cypress trees to regenerate. So it's a differences in water level It has a floodplain ecologist, we refer to this term that's called the bank full level. So during low water periods, all the bayous and lakes are contained within their banks. When the river starts to rise in the late winter, early spring, those water levels start to rise up to the point to where the bayous are at as full as they can get without spilling into the floodplain. Water levels rise even more, then the floodplain becomes inundated. That's what provides the access for the crawfish, for the fish, for the ducks, everything to get back there to the swamp. And you can see the water line along these cypress trees, which is, how deep it would normally get. So it's that seasonal rise and fall of that water level is what drives the ecology of this region. And everything from phytoplankton to birds to alligators to fish. Okay, everything is impacted in the floodplain by that. And so when we talk about above bank full levels, the whole of Chapala Basin is like a lake. The upper Barataria, the upper Terrebonne used to be that too when it was connected to the Mississippi. They're no longer connected to the Mississippi. So their whole hydrology is different. And you can see once below bank level, you have aquatic and terrestrial habitats within those regions. Now, as a fish biologist, I might have the question, okay, how is fish reproduction affected if the flood starts early, but doesn't last very long? In other words, the bluegill, the shoepit, they don't have time to make the nest and lay their eggs. The water came up and flooded, but it went down kind of fast. Or if I'm Tim Allen, I may wonder how is cypress tree production affected if we got a really long lake flood pulse? How does that type of stuff work? Okay, so we can be ready, and we gotta wait. We gotta wait for the river to do its thing. Okay, like right now, if I was ready, I could look at fish reproduction in a year where we have basically no flood. Okay, that does come around, I don't know how often, but it's not very often. We can't do that. So we can't design predictable studies to do. We have to take what the river gives us that year. All right, so this is where things start to change. Like I said, I was got involved pretty heavily at the farm around 2006, and they let me get on a tractor with a big bush hog, and so that's when I found my piece. Quite a bit as much as I can, and I would mow this old pond right here, and then I realized that these two ponds, this picture's from 2006, have been growing trees for a while, and they look like, I live in Chattanooga, they look like the swamps around my house. Maybe not as many cypress trees, but they had big trees and big willow trees. I started bringing my ecology class out there. We measured the tree density, all this type of stuff and all that. And I started thinking, that's when I was realizing about the upper Barataria, completely disconnected from the river compared to the Chafalaya, which is connected to the river. And we've got these whole flood pulse water dynamic things and all of that. And I looked at this with a bird's eye view. I thought, man, maybe we can do a flood pulse out here. Maybe we can construct something to do this. I found an old paper, March of 2005. I wrote a white paper. Me and a couple of people I know, Elise and I had many conversations about that. It was submitted to then U.S. Representative Charlie Lawson to build what I'm going to talk to you about. So this is 21 years later, it finally happened. So we've been thinking about this for a long time. I want you to focus on the design of those ponds where they're circling. We got the two ponds with the trees. I'm calling those our swamp ponds. And then the rectangular pond to the left is what we're going to call our bayou pond. So ducks are living, after we built that first wetland I just talked about, I said, hey guys, here's another idea. Kind of joking, thinking they wouldn't bite on it. And they thought, well, you know what? We got money we have to spend. We're going to call this phase 2 of this project. All right, so that's going to tie in pretty good. And so if you look at these two images side by side, you can see where the ponds are. You see where we put the pump in. All right, and this shows the elevation of the areas. And so we have a little bit deeper areas. But what we did was in this pond, we excavated a bayou. All right, went in there, cleared the trees that were growing there, and dug a bayou. Okay, so here's the different way that it looks now. From the pump that they put in Bayou Falls, if you bury a 10-inch pipeline through what we call now the Crawfish swamp to pump up with a riser in Bayou Pompon. Okay, Bayou Pompon is one of my all-time favorite Cajun songs, so I got to name it. One of the first songs I learned how to play. And the other thing is that we are trying to replicate what's going on in the Chafalaya Basin or the Upper Barataria. We have our own pipeline now. Okay, so we study pipeline dynamics of that. Each of those circles in white is a separate riser. Means we can pump water into those units. So each unit has its own source of water if we want to. Those orange arrows are drains. All right, so we can drain the bayou, we can drain each swamp if we want to. That means that each of those 3 units can be flooded and drained independent of each other, right? However, that's not how we're gonna operate this thing. What we're going to do is we're gonna bring water into bayou pom up to bank full level. And if we raise the water levels above bank full level, that's when the culverts start to become connected. Where those yellow arrows are, we have culverts that connect the bayou to each swamp. And so now as we bring water above bank full level, like in the Chafalaya, like the upper Barataria operates, we can inundate those floodplains, right? Turn the pump off, let the water sit however long we want to, top it off. And then when we are ready, we can pull this plug and start draining the bayou and then dewater the floodplains. All right, so now we have our own active floodplain system that we can operate. So this is what the bayou looks like. We put a levee next to it that we can drive all the way around. So we can bring school kids out there, visitors, or do whatever. This is what the current floodplain looks like right now. So you can imagine 2.5 feet of water over this coming up pretty soon. You know, so we can replicate that. And this is what our drain system looks like. We can. There's a series of boards that we stack on. So we have about a 6-inch level of precision of water level that we can operate at. What can we do with a controlled flood pulse? We can do whatever we want. Okay, we get to say what we want. In lines with the nutrient reduction goals of this original project, what this is for, think about this. We can pull water from the exact same source at the exact same time into the marsh wetland and then into the swamp wetland and look at nutrient removal dynamics. So if we want to start reconnecting the Mississippi River to the historic floodplain north of the river, we can start looking at what's the potential nutrient removal from that. That's one thing that we can do. We can look at soil nutrient dynamics. In fact, I'm going out there tomorrow to pull soil cores out of this before we put this in operation. Dissolved oxygen is a big deal in the swamps. We can study those nutrient things. We don't have to hook up a boat to a truck, drive an hour and a half to a boat launch, go on a boat, get our samples. I don't ride bikes very often, but I could ride a bike from here to that swamp and cut my samples. Okay, we could do that. This is great for our students. We can bring the students out there. It's 5 minutes down the road. We can drive to the edge of the swamp, take our samples, and come back in. Okay, so this is really, really convenient for us. All the animal behavior from zooplankton to the birds. We can study how does that altered flood pulse or how does the flood pulse impact those things. We can look at plant production, tree growth, all that type of stuff. And there's a lot of things that we can do, especially with animal behavior, because once the Chafalaya Basin floods, it's so vast, you can't find anything again. It just disappears into the void. But because these are contained systems, one swamp pond is 12 acres, the other one is 15 acres. We can have everything contained and we will be able to get out there and follow. I know Dr. Tim Clay has a telemetry that's already, I think he wants to follow some turtles. How do turtles do? What do we do in a floodplain? Those types of things. So the questions that we will be able to address are almost limitless for the system. I can tell you, no one in this country has anything like this. So here's our immediate plan. We flipped the switch on a pump for the first time Tuesday. Okay, the contractors went out there a couple of days ago, hooked up the electricity, gave it a test run, and everything was good. So he's going to show me how to operate that system on Tuesday. And when I walk away, I'm going to leave the pump on it, and we're going to start flooding. Because what we want to do is this summer, how long does it take to fill the place to capacity? How long does it take to dewater it? And then we'll do that maybe 2 or 3 times this summer, so that whenever we do our first prescribed flood, ready for all our studies ready to go next year, if I want my thing full at March 15th, I'll know when I need to flip the switch to fill it up. Okay. This summer, we're going to stock it with a bunch of native fish species. We've been doing fish community work out here for many, many, many years. Bites, grill, the Chafalaya Basin. So we know what makes up our running abundance for each species. So we'll stock things like bluegill, red ear, black crappie, spotted gar, alligator gar, channel catfish, bullheads, all those regular types of things that we can put out there. And then I've got a grad student already. She's going to monitor the larval fish production that we have out there. I've got another student coming in this August. She's going to monitor the soil, the water chemistry, onset of low oxygen and how the fish assemblages may be impacted by that. So we've already got some studies that we know are going to happen. We're going to compare our ecological responses, everything from phytoplankton community to tree growth to everything, between those 2 swamps for maybe the first 5 years. And we want to measure that ecological response to whatever flood regime we do that year. If those 2 react the same, then what we can do is, because we can close off connections, we can use one as a control, one as a test. So we can flood one early, flood the other one a little bit later, or we can drain one early and flood the other one a little bit later. We can do two different flood pulses, side by side, same water, same mean, everything. Now, they do not have the same ecological response each year, whether we can't do that. So that's one of the things that we want to learn early on in this. Our long-term goal is we've got a small internal committee that has the authority to set, alter the flood pulse and approve those projects out there. Okay, that's our internal committee. If we decide that, hey, we were going to do the cycle flood regime, but for some reason we have to change it, we have the authority to change that. I also want to develop an external committee that can recommend the flood regime for 5 to 10 years from now. So next year, we're doing an early short flood pulse. The year after that, we're doing a late long flood pulse. The year after that, we're doing a typical flood pulse, blah, 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 going down. So they will recommend that flood regime so we can develop that. And so people can plan well in advance. This is the flood pulse, and this is the question I want to answer for that. Okay, they can maybe then. So that's going to be how we set that up. That's going to be our sort of advisory board for the small internal committee. Then I want to develop a working floodplain group, ecology group that know what's going on. We may have an annual meeting. They know what the flood regime is coming up, and they may be somebody who works in swamps in South Carolina. They have a particular question you want to ask. They can come down here, collect their data, and maybe use the Coastal Center lab space to work that up. So again, we become not only a collaborative group there, but we can also tie in the Coastal Center to bring in people to come and use the space that's available. So this is taken from the road that's right next to the shoe pick swamp, and pretty soon this is going to be shoe pick habitat, right? We're going to go there and start stocking them, and hopefully we can learn a lot about floodplain ecology. We can learn about reintroduction of the Mississippi to its historic floodplain areas, things like that. And as close as we are, we still have a lot of work to be done out there. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to do at the farm. I still want to build relationships. I want to do a collaboration. So if you're interested in serving on that advisory board type of thing from here, man, let me know. I haven't reached out to anybody about that yet, but it's time I do. And I'm going to start doing that on Tuesday, I guess. I guess to get that system rolling. But that's what I have. I'll be glad to take any questions.
This is awesome. I love it.
Okay.
I'm so excited for you guys.
Thank you.
And for us.
Yeah. So Angela and I were talking about doing this collaborative thing where we bring in school groups or different types of groups that can visit their place. They can come out here, visit our place, come out here, visit that. So we have this whole day plan for different groups that can come out and use this facility. Now I got an idea. Maybe you can bring a bunch of kids out there and have a crawfish day where each kid gets their own crawfish net. They got 30 minutes to crawfish, and whoever catches the biggest crawfish wins. You know, that type of thing. But this is going to be a fantastic thing to introduce students into the importance of floodplain habitat, wetlands, that type of stuff. You know, we're developing walking trails, we're developing all this type of stuff, and I would like to bring in signage, different types of guidance, and the dog is here. Any other questions? Yeah.
So I agree with that. I think that's great that you can flood and drain and all those things. But you're gonna be stocking with some different fish and stuff.
Right.
You're gonna have some type of device, something to prevent you drain.
Okay. I thought about that a lot. So
see if I get the apple snail gets in there from.
Yeah, so the question is when we drain it, or we're going to be releasing stuff, we're going to lose our stuff. I don't think we are. Yeah, we're going to lose some stuff, right? The drain's over top, but the whole system comes down so slow, it's not going to be a rush to get to the drain, right? It's not going to be a slow drawdown. And so where those fish are in the bayou, there's no reason for them to come from far away to the drain. You know, so I don't think that's it. The other thing, the apple snails are going to be out there. They are. I mean, as soon as we built the wetland, they were in there by force, and that's why we got all the limpets out there. And so, yeah, we're going to have that. Someone asked me almost stock invasive carp out there. I said, no. And the fish that we want to stock in there are fish that we think would likely be able to reproduce. Okay, like striped bullard are very common fish that we see in our waterways around here, but I don't think they would be able to persist in this system. So we're looking at things like the centrarchids, the sunfish, bass, catfish, maybe some gizzard shad. Maybe we can look at there, some threadfin shad and such things. Yeah. Yep.
When you plan to stock, are you going to stock the
floodplains themselves or stock the bayou that
No.
the flood is moving in?
We're gonna stock the bayou. Yeah, we're gonna stock the bayou, and so, this is gonna be a big deal. So if anybody wants to come help us, we're gonna need a lot of help, because we're gonna have our electrofishing boat, probably around Lake Zones. That's a good place to get a bunch of stuff. And the 2 biology trucks going back and forth. So we'll shock for like half an hour, load up a truck, send that truck over here to release it. In the meantime, we'll shock for another half hour, and the second truck will be there, and we're gonna coordinate them, trying to put as little stress on those fish as we can with those hormone tanks that we have. And of course, we're gonna record everything that we put out there, so we know what we're starting with, and we can monitor that over time. That's it.
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm, you know, from a Northfish Levy District point of view, this is right in the middle of our drainage, and so very interested in being on the.
And I've got some other stuff I want to talk to you about, because that little small pond that I didn't talk about that was outlined in orange. There's actually 3 units there, and I'll have a matrix out there, litter for matrix out there. And I'm talking about doing levee overtop study, so we can build small levees in there and just have a uniform flow over those, look at different structures. So I definitely talk about that. Yes.
After we're building out, you can see it in Bell River and Pierre Park, we have a pond that's a huge pond adjacent to the facility, to the building. We have birds that come there from all over. Are you available to give us some insight? I saw you had ducks and other birds that come in. Will you be available as on consultant basis to help us since it's in infancy?
Oh, absolutely. As long as my friend Delaney can help too. She's much more of an expert than I am.
Look, we always have coffee and Crawfish.
Hey, I'll come here just to tell stories. Anything else? Yes.
When I saw that concentration of ducks, I was very impressed. And you prefer more than oil?
No comment. Anybody else? All right, well, thank y'all.
Thank you, Dr. Fonda. That was very interesting, and you guys can't tell, Dr. Fonda is excited about it.
Yes, I am.
As we all are. It's a really neat thing. So it's my pleasure. I mentioned our colleagues visited us last month from the Mobile National Estuary Program, Mobile Bay National Estuary Program. Cody was one of those on the visit. We got to talk with him then. We've seen an interesting presentation that he gave at another event, and thought, man, this would be pretty cool to show the management conference. So with that, Cody, I won't talk much about your background. I'm sure you're going to get into that in the presentation. We'll turn it over to you. Thank you very much for making the trip. We'll be able to be here with us today.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me? I have a nice loud voice. My wife reminds me all the time. My name is Cody. This is Dilla. I work in the Mobile Bay National Estuary Program, as Brent put out. I think it's an interesting thing. I'm going to kind of move through these real quick, and then we'll do a little Q&A. But I think it's interesting to me that, you know, we all kind of live in a bit of a silo sometimes, and we get really caught up in our day-to-day stuff in our own little area, and we realize, you know, hey, there's a whole other United States that have similar problems and that are, you know, really trying to make efforts towards a better environmental management. So first of all, from the NEP, the Mobile Bay NEP, thank you all for doing what you do. And this is some brand at the Barataria-Terrebonne National Estuary.
Not Barabone, sir.
I keep calling it Barataria-Terrebonne. That's what I've been calling it. Anyways, I don't think I need to go over the purpose of the NEP. You guys understand full well what our mission is. But one of the things that we have a problem with is, and this is nationwide, this isn't just here. Fill it down. Stay. So one of the things that we have an issue with, obviously, is we have pathogens in the water, bacteria levels. There's a water watch, a river keepers, a bay keeper, some sort of an entity here. I'm sure the state probably has something that they're doing where they're monitoring bacteria levels in our rivers and streams. It's a problem, right? And one of the problems that's a contributor to that is raw sewage. So one of the things that when I first got hired on, Roberta Swan, who's our previous director, you know, when I got hired on, I was sitting in Baghdad, Iraq, with my suit top on and my gym shorts on the bottom, and I'm having this virtual call, and she's like, hey, you do dog stuff. Do you think you could train a dog to find pathogens? And I'm like, absolutely, I sure can. And so I show up day one, and she was like, yeah, I remember that dog thing that you said you could do. I need you to do it. So I've like started scratching my head, like trying to figure that out. So, but basically getting ahead of myself, what we wanted to do was we wanted to try to reduce the time that it takes and the cost associated with point and non-point source tracking. We wanted to try to add a screening tool to a process that that kind of works well. We wanted to make it more efficient, and then we wanted to, again, provide this tool to municipalities and infrastructure owners. So basically, quick overview, how else better to do that? Dogs find drugs, they find explosives, they find all kinds of cool things. Let's train a dog to do this. We, again, want to use the canine as a screening tool, and we want to try to facilitate better environmental management. Really quick, what does any presentation say? What is any presentation without acknowledging partners? As we're a division of the Dauphin Island Sea Lab, I'm sure maybe some of you have been there. Alabama Department of Environmental Management, USA, FDA, ESA, all these were Mobile County. I mean, we have a whole barrage of partners. This has been a really collaborative effort to try to make this thing work. I do want to highlight a couple of important ones, though, is the FDA, the EPA, and ESA were really big players in this. ESA and I'm sorry, the EPA and FDA were pivotal in getting our methods down. So we had to compare the dog results to something, and they were there to help us with the laboratory results. This is me, veteran-led program. I'm a United States Navy veteran. I was a military working dog handler for 8 years. I fought in Afghanistan in 2012, and my job was to look for improvised explosive devices. I then did another 8 years as a security contractor for the Department of State in Baghdad and Kabul, Afghanistan, as doing basically the same job. So I thought it was important to highlight this is because I'm not a Petco dog trainer. No offense to any Petco dog trainers in the room, but you know, it's literally life or death. My results have to be perfect, have to be spot on because someone's life depends on it. And so I brought that same expertise into this project. I want to talk a little bit about the canine utilization. Everyone has probably seen a police officer. On my way over here, I saw a whole bunch of them. they were out. I'm just saying. They were like looking. I was doing the speed limit, and they're looking at me like they were gonna. But anyways, everyone has seen a police working dog before. You see them in the back of vehicles. Search and rescue dogs. Service animals for disabilities, CNI dogs, emotional support dogs. But there's a few other little things that dogs can do as well, or jobs that are already kind of available for canines. Is virus detection, and now we've added wastewater detection, which I think is a really, really cool thing. This project was novel. There was a lady that had attempted it in 2009, and she didn't really get very far. And because it's a very complicated process, at least on the dog side. So we were really trailblazing, trying to figure out what are the next steps with this thing. I want to talk a little bit about the canine olfaction system and why it works the way that it does. So dogs have around 300 million olfaction receptors in their nostrils. So basically, there's cilia that's inside of a canine's nose, and there's mucous membranes on top of that. And as the air passes over it, the odor molecules will get kind of trapped on that cilia, and then it'll send receptors to the brain. The olfaction region in the dog's brain is, or sorry, the olfaction region in the animal's brain is about 40 times larger than that of humans. And it also makes up about 40% of their processing, right? So their brain, 40% of their whole brain is processing scent. Their scent detection is parts per trillion. And so we've actually got it down, I mean, pretty low during our project. We've seen the dog go almost in parts per quadrillion. I mean, like it was really low. And their discrimination ability. Dogs, you'll see this big cheeseburger that's sitting up there, and canines have the ability to discern between odors. I want to get out of the way so everybody can see. So if you walk into a diner and you have this overwhelming kind of smell of cheeseburger, French fry type combo, you really can't smell anything else other than that greasy mess that's in there. Whereas dogs can kind of pick out the lettuce, they can pick out the meat, the seasonings in the meat, you know, the cheese, what all the ingredients are in that, and they can kind of separate it in their mind. And it seems foreign to us, but dogs kind of smell how we see color, right? You know, you can kind of see differences between different beiges or whatever. Dogs can do that with their nose. So what's the problem? This is Alabama, or Mobile, Baldwin County, and you will see this is Mobile County, this is Baldwin County, and you'll see some little yellow dots. The larger the dot is, the more instances of unsafe bacteria levels that were recorded. This map changes all the time. It varies, but that's usually at any given time. That's what it looks like. And you'll also see with the red lines here, you'll see those are our 303 delisted streams. And then you'll see these kind of like green, opaque kind of colors. That was the Hub 12 watersheds with significant pathogen problems. And so just a quick note, there's less yellow dots here in Baldwin County, and it is a more rural county, and there's just not as much monitoring that goes on in that area. But this is all from Alabama Water Watch and Alabama Department of Environmental Management. This is their numbers. So we got a big problem, right? And so our solution was to just to screen these samples, try to figure out a way to make this a more cost-effective, easier, cheaper way to do it. And so that's what we've set out to do. And you'll see a lovely little picture of Professor X. He's dog one. He's out on a boat. We're in Mobile Bay, and waves were crashing, the boat's moving around. The dog was detecting just fine, no issues there. So we know the dog can do it from the boat. And then this was later on throughout the day. We did some detection work for the FDA, our FDA friends. So what was our methodology? How did we kind of figure this stuff out? That was a headache in and of itself. My first thought was, I'm going to take these chemical markers and these and all this and E. coli. I'm going to do all this. I'm going to mix it all together. I'm going to make this training aid, give something to imprint the dog. But it wound up kind of being a big flop. So what we did is we just said, let's just take raw wastewater and dilute it down. We got with the FDA and EPA. We figured out what would be a dilution that would kind of mimic a regulatory level of sorts. And so what we came up with was a -3 dilution, which is about parts per, somebody who's a scientist, help me out here. Parts per, I think, was it 100,000, something like that? Still it, down. Down, stay. Basically, what we did was we diluted it down to what was in regulatory levels. We then we did a microbial analysis. We looked for E. coli, enterococcus, things like that. And then we impregnated it in something called a get-sent tube. Now, the get-sent tube is you can see it off here in the side. This is a kind of a novel piece of technology in the canine world. But what it does, get up here, down, stay, stay. So what it is we can impregnate the odor molecules onto this device, and then we can present it to the dogs. So that way, the training aid will go from maybe 3 weeks or so to about 6 months, 9 months, something like that. So it increases the shelf life of the sewage itself. But anyways, then we did that, and then we trained the canine on it. It was really kind of a simple process. We also used IDEX. Blair, who's our scientist, always gets mad at me when I don't say that. So we use an IDEX and a double auger overlay, which I'm not a scientist. I'm a knuckle dragger, and that means nothing to me. So these were the two locations that we decided to do it. Fly Creek is an area in Baldwin County, which is the more rural area, and then West Fowl River is a bit more of a concentrated area. When we first did Fly Creek, we did it in wet and dry conditions. We wanted to see, because usually with microbial source tracking, we have to do it after a rain event. And so I wanted to see, can we do this during the dry season? It'll really help things out. So when we first did Fly Creek, that was what we did. We did a dry one, and then we did a wet one here more recently, which I'll get into in just a second. And then we did West Fowl River, of course. That's a big oyster culture type deal, a lot of oyster farmers in the area. So I do want to talk about our accomplishments today. One of the things that I guess we'll get to is our double-blind study. We did a big 8-hour test, right? We wanted to make sure that this dog wasn't using any kind of handler inputs or anything like that. So we set up a double-blind study. We gave the dog 180 nose to odor exposures. You look at me. Like I said, it was an 8-hour test, and the dog performed with 99.4% accuracy. If she comes over to you guys, feel free to love her up. She's super fun. So the dog, I said, was, again, 99.4% accuracy, and we threw everything at this dog. We threw scatol, we threw treated wastewater, we put tap water, we put little pieces of the Kong and little pieces of food. I mean, all kinds of stuff in there to try to throw the dog off novel odors that the dog had never been exposed to before. The dog at the very last iteration, come here. The very last iteration, stay. The dog decided to false respond. He had had enough. He was like, he was bored. He was in his kennel. So we're kind of chalking that up to the dog being bored. So when we first did our threshold, or we first did the first deployment in Fly Creek in Fairhope, the dog was responding on everything. Now we compared this to a male-specific coliphage and fecal coliforms test, and that was showing that it was negative. And so as we were going through that, we're like, well, why is the dog still responding on this stuff? So I asked our FDA representative, I'm like, hey, why would, what's kind of like the bottom threshold for the male-specific coliphage test? And he said it would kind of hover around -5, which is a million dilution, something like that. So, huh?
It says 100,000 up there.
100,000, look at that, boom. You guys can tell I'm not a scientist. So, anyways, but yeah, so it was a 1 parts per 100,000. And so we were like, let's see how far down the dog goes. Where's the dog's bottom limit? And the dog ended up at about a -14, which is parts per whatever that number is. And so to us, I mean, that was incredible because the dog was about 1 million times or 9 orders of magnitude lower than what the current tests were, right? What they can do in the laboratory, which was not useful at all for our project because we don't need a dog detecting like these minuscule amounts of sewage. That's not helpful for us. So we had to raise the threshold up, which we did, and then the dog performed quite well. We were able to get our hands on a real life sewage leak. Those are actually kind of harder to find than you would think. And we set up a quick test for the dog. The dog gave us 100% accuracy and did absolutely wonderful. So earlier I talked a little bit about the Fly Creek project that we did. Fly Creek gave us a little bit more money towards this project in order to carry out a second iteration of this. And so when we did, we had got ESA involved, and that was when EPA kind of stepped in and really helped out with some of the microbial stuff. But what ended up happening is that we collected all of these samples, and the dog performed with 100% accuracy. The dog did not find things when they weren't supposed to, and they responded well. So it was a really, really good thing. And what the other cool thing about it was during this project, we were able to save the municipality $166,000 just by utilizing the canine. So as we're going through this process and this experiment, we're realizing that this is a massive cost saver. I did my paper napkin math, and of course you guys know that it's not that great, but I was able to figure out that about 70% cost savings if you utilize the dog in traditional methods of detecting sewage. We were also able to get a certification standard from the United Police Working Dog Association. Dylan, come here. I know friends. So you guys see a police working dog bebopping around streets. You'll see that if they have a dog with them, they will be certified under one of 5 organizations. The United Police Working Dog Association is one of those 5 accreditation organizations, and they were nice enough to write a training standard for us. So there is a training standard that we can give to whoever wants to use it and say, hey, train your dog to this standard, and then you can utilize this program. And so that kind of leaves us at where we are with our next steps. We do need to see more data on this. I do think it's very promising what we have so far. I think it's going to be a great tool that we can give municipalities. We are also in talks with Alabama Department of Environmental Management to figure out some sort of a way to incorporate this into the regulatory world or the permitting world for wastewater infrastructure owners. So if they utilize the dog in their monitoring program, that there will be some sort of an easement on their permits where they don't have to sample as much. And then scale it. That's the next steps. So with that, I will open it up to questions. Yes, sir, in the back. With the blue shirt hat. So far, we have 2 dogs. Yes, sir. I take a dog from 0 to hero in 90 days. The dog knows nothing. The dog knows everything in 90 days.
10 years back, I don't know when we did the project for the entire pilot.
There's a lot of figures of houses, there's, package lines. It's hard to track the wastewater, This would be a great, asset for water quality. I think it was like 300,000 we spent.
So one of the cool things, and one of the cool things about this is we take a 4-year process of doing microbial source tracking studies and we turn it into a day. So really all we have to do is go collect samples and then we set it out. The dog runs the samples, and then if the dog indicates on any of them, we take those ones that the dog indicated on and we send them to the lab for verification. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We're just adding that screening tool. But I'd be happy to talk to you further if that's.
Can you think of a shared style with this, does it have to be specific type of food?
Yeah, so we talked about that. That's been brought up a number of times. The issue with that is if you start to take a police dog that's trained on narcotics or explosives, and the dog responds on something, and you train that dog to do sewage, and then he responds on something, did the guy not wipe well enough, or is it explosives? What do we do here? So we want to make sure we're alleviating that confusion. Sorry to be crude. That's what I got. Yes, ma'am. Well, we try to stay with. So this is a purpose-bred dog. These dogs are a little bit pricier than something that you would get from a breeder, just an average breeder. This dog particularly was sourced from Norway. I know Professor X was dog one. He was from wherever they speak Flemish. I don't know, someplace in Europe. But I know that they're bred into this. Is a bloodline that they want to see specific traits and characteristics and DNA kind of markers in the dog. You could train a dog if they had the drives to do it. But I mean, any dog would work, to answer your question.
Yeah. One of our challenges is to tell the difference between fecal coliforms from humans versus ducks and birds.
Mm-hmm.
Have you played around with those differences?
So we expose this dog to any type of feces. So we wish we could have the dog lay down whenever he encountered bird feces or deer feces or whatever. We wish that we could have been able to do that. But right now the dog will tell you, yes, this is human, or no, it is not human. That's all it really gets, which is a big thing because it guides infrastructure efforts, right? So if the dog indicates on something, you could use the dog as a standalone effort itself. But if the dog responds, you say, hey, we need to look at the infrastructure here, or no, we need to look at the deer population. So yes, that's what the dog does. Two, that's all I got. All right, cool.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. If anybody wants to pet, there's pets.
So to wrap up our presentation section of the meeting, and we move to public comment. I think there's someone from CRCL. Yep.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kendall Julio. I'm a AmeriCorps member with CRCL with the Coalition of Historic Louisiana. So excited to be here with y'all and to introduce our latest citizen science project, virtual oyster gardening. Here's our example. If you guys are not familiar with our organization, we partner with over 30 restaurants in New Orleans and Baton Rouge and recycle their used oyster shells. We've moved into living shoreline projects, but we have decided to also start this project, virtual oyster gardening in the Barataria-Terrebonne system, where we will be pouring 250 logs to waterfront properties. So if anyone here is interested in taking part of this, we would love to have you guys participate. We have up to 3 vertical oyster gardens per property. We are also doing monitoring on a select amount of them. So if you're really excited about this, we would love for you guys to volunteer to quarterly monitoring. So every 3 months we would be doing biological surveys, seeing how much has been recruited on our logs. Yeah, if you guys have any questions about that or our organization, please come find us. And we have flyers at the sign-in table, and the sign-up form is also there as well. So, guys.
Also one question?
Yeah. When you deploy the activities to people with shoreline, things like that, we plan to eventually harvest them to put it off the coast of conservation, or is it something that we can talk about?
We're not planning to harvest them. We would love that they would recruit there and help support the populations within that area.
Are you, follow-up question, are you, would you educate the property owners that anything that is next to it is considered illegal to harvest and becomes a health hazard?
Yes, we have that on the sign-up form. They know they're not allowed to figure out.
Yeah, first, maybe the time the Biochemical Museum is undergoing a renovation of their estuary. We did it, so it's such a crowd, and they're really did it. 1 foot long table, 5 foot, that is up for grabs. So any organizations are interested in full or housing that within their facilities, they would be happy to building that. Or they have to pick it up. So they're interested in that piece, that's their big about it. And, with your contract with people that you contact with, require to keep that exhibit.
I do have an announcement I'd like to make. The Food Parish recently joined the Chapel Natural Heritage Area. And we are going to have them come meet with us. Raffles is going to host them on May 27th, Wednesday, May 27th at 10 a.m. at the Jean Reed Center, the Weapons Canyon Cultural Center here in Toledo. It is open to the public, so if you're interested in what the Chapel Trace Commission does, and to learn more about it, you're welcome to join that as well. Any other comments? Okay, I think we're good. Make a motion to adjourn. Second, Clay. All in favor? Okay, I'm not sure if Crawfish are ready or not, but they're ready. Okay, so if you guys want to go out the back, and you'll see the difference. Almost.
Great meeting. Bye, everyone.